My brother thought he could frame me at work and slide into my role. He set the perfect trap, but he overlooked one thing. I know how to strike back. Now, he has it all, except a job, a reputation, and any chance of ever outsmarting me again. My name's Alex. I'm 28. For the past few years, I've been grinding away at a large company, and I recently got promoted to department head. And yeah, I earned it. Sleepless nights, missed weekends, countless deadlines hanging over me like storm clouds. That's been my life. I was the guy who stayed late, turned out the office lights, and probably would have slept there if it meant a faster climb up the career ladder. Long story short, I worked for it, and I finally made it. Then there's my younger brother, Jason, who's 26, and also works in our company, but in a different department. He's a guy with charm, charisma, and that killer smile that he believes makes him invincible. We've always been close, but there's always been one thing. Since we were kids, we've had this weird competition. Who could finish a project first, get the higher test score, be stronger, faster, better? Basically, who's the boss here? It seemed playful, but for Jason, every contest was a real battle. If he wasn't number one, he felt he'd lost big time. When I got the promotion, Jason acted thrilled for me. He even came to my office, gave me a hug, and said something like, "Man, you're a beast. I knew you'd pull it off." For a minute, I relaxed, thinking he was genuinely happy for me. But that lasted until I started noticing some tension in his behavior. He began making jokes like, "Well, now that you're the boss, how about putting in a good word for me?" Or, "Remember, bro, I'm here to back you up, especially if your position suddenly opens up." At first, I thought he was kidding. I mean, we're brothers. Sure, he likes to give me a hard time, show off a little, but what else is new? Yet the more I heard these jokes, the clearer it became that something was up. Jason seemed visibly irritated by my success. There was something in his eyes, not outright malice, but definitely not good intentions. I realized it wasn't just envy. He was actually starting to obsess over my position. So, one morning at our team meeting, I went in ready to showcase my progress as usual. But then my manager casually brings up issues with my recent projects. Wait, issues? What issues? My reports are like clockwork, accurate and error-free. But he kept talking, calling the errors serious mistakes that made my jaw nearly hit the floor. It was like being accused of accidentally stepping on the gas instead of the brakes in a parking lot. I was in shock. After the meeting, I rushed to check all my files. Every report under scrutiny had, let's just say, glaring errors. And the strange part? These mistakes looked deliberate, as if someone had gone in and made a real effort to sabotage me. I started going over in my head who might have access to my files. Then I remembered. Over the past few days, Jason had been dropping by my office a lot, lingering a bit too long. At the time, I thought it was just his usual chatty self. But now that friendly behavior looked anything but innocent. Then, a few days later, I saw Jason walk past my office, pause, and throw me this sly look that gave me chills. I greeted him, and with a knowing smirk he said, "Need a hand in tough times, big brother?" If looks could burn, Jason would have been a pile of ashes. I immediately understood this wasn't just brotherly support. It was that moment when everything clicks. This smirking jerk was clearly behind my problems. But I had one major hurdle: no proof. If I accused him without evidence, I'd look like a paranoid maniac. He'd probably laugh it off or even apologize. I needed more than just my gut feeling. After Jason's supportive remarks, I realized it was time to step up my game. From then on, I became a bit of a paranoiac. Every time I finished a project, I saved not just one, but 3 backup copies in different locations, like I was hoarding state secrets. And to be extra careful, I set up automated tracking on my files. If anyone decided to mess with my work, they'd leave a trail. One day at lunch, I just started to relax when Jason began talking about how our company was no place for the weak. Then, flashing a grin like he was the hero of some low-budget action movie, he added, "You'd better stay sharp." Was I supposed to take that as friendly advice? He was definitely hinting at something bigger. I didn't even pretend not to understand. I just nodded like, let's see who's weak. After that advice, I took things a step further. I installed software on my computer that tracked every keystroke, every access. If he tried anything, it would all be recorded, and I'd get notifications on my phone. Sure enough, a few days later, the program flagged something suspicious. Someone logged into my account when I was nowhere near my desk. There I was, eating a burger at a cafe around the corner, while some good Samaritan was busy accessing my files. The access came from within the company network, of course. Now, who could it possibly be? At this point, I had evidence. Someone, most likely Jason, wasn't just making edits to my files, but was doing it deliberately to make me look incompetent. It seemed his little scheme had become more interesting to him than his actual job responsibilities. All that was left was to catch him red-handed. I prepared to ensure his final move would leave him with no way to redeem himself. So one day, Jason strolls into my office, acting casual, and starts chatting. He throws out a line with such arrogance that I almost felt sorry for him. "You know, some people at this company can take advantage of the right moment to show what they're made of," he says, with that grin of his. It's obvious he's talking about himself. The wildest part? He thinks no one will catch on to his meticulous work. The next day, I set the stage for his attack. I left an open file on my desktop, appearing to contain critical information. But it was no ordinary file. Hidden within were metadata traps that would track every single change made. If he took the bait, I'd have concrete proof. And I knew Jason couldn't resist a golden opportunity like this. Sure enough, he bit. No sooner had I left for lunch than I got an email notification. Jason was working on my file. The software tracked every edit he made, capturing each detail he tried to change. I took screenshots immediately. It was like watching a live performance. Jason, with all the confidence in the world, was editing away, convinced I'd never know. The next day, I gathered everything into a neat little folder. I included all the screenshots, metadata, and a written summary, sending it directly to HR and my manager. I even added a note. It might be worth assessing Jason's role in contributing to recent issues in the department. The result? I didn't have to wait long. Jason was called into a meeting where they laid out every one of his moves. He tried to explain it all away as a misunderstanding and that he was just trying to help, but nobody was buying it. The evidence was too clear. He was fired on the spot, no ceremony. Now he's out of a job, and I can finally breathe easy.